welcome back. I hope everybody's managed to get some coffee or tea and is ready for the next session on standardizing RWA with Joachim Lebrun, the chairman of the tech working group of the ERC3640 and here the 43 standard. Joachim, can you join us, please?
So, hello everyone. So I'm here to explain you what is the ERC3643 standard. So I'm the main creator of the standard. I've been working on that with Token2049 for the last 5 years. So the point is that tokenization is a great idea, but we need standardization because otherwise nothing is going to work together. So that's why we created ERC3643. So this standard is an extension of ERC20 that is made to tokenize any kind of real-world assets. So it can be securities, it can be e-money, it can be like bonds, shares, equity, real estate, whatever you want to tokenize, as long as it's fungible, it can be tokenized with ERC3643. So this standard, as I was saying, can be used in a lot of use cases. It has been used in 180 plus jurisdictions right now, tokenize more than $28 billion of assets. We have more than 400 tokens deployed right now in production with 70,000 plus on-chain identities linked to the tokens. So every single stakeholder in the ecosystem has a self-sovereign identity, which is called on-chain ID. And that's how you can manage the eligibility rules for when someone receives an ERC3643. That someone needs to be KYC checked, for example. You need to verify that they are eligible investors from an eligible jurisdiction. And that's how we manage it on ERC3643. It's with DIDs, and it's called on-chain ID, but it's not a commercial name. It's something completely open source, so you can use it. It's for free. Anyone can use it. And yeah, the use cases are infinite. Like, it really depends on what you want to tokenize, but there is no limitation as long as it's fungible. You cannot really tokenize something that is not fungible with this token standard because it's an extension of ERC20, but otherwise you can tokenize whatever you want. So we created an association, non-profit, to push this standard because, as I was saying, the point about tokenization of real-world assets is not creating a new standard of token. Like, everyone for a long time has been trying to create their own standard on their side, and then it creates silos, and everyone is just focusing on the tech, while what we should focus on is pushing business, not the tech. So here, the ERC3643 is proposing a standard that can be applied to any type of asset. So as long as we agree to build on that standard, we can move on and start building business and stop focusing on creating a new technical gas factory. Like, that's not the purpose of it. So we have now, in fact, 80 plus members. It's still 75 plus on my slides, but we have 80 plus members in the association, including very big names, asset servicers, big global law firms, Web3 players. For example, we have Apex, which is pushing Token2049, which is part of the investors of Token2049, which is I am part of, which is an asset servicer that is managing trillions of dollars of assets, and they want to tokenize everything. So that's a very big deal, and we have a lot of these kind of actors pushing the standard. So in the ERC3643 Association, we have several working groups. The one that I'm pushing personally is the Technology and Security Working Group, because I'm a tech guy. But we have also an Education Working Group, Legal and Compliance Working Group, and an Ecosystem Working Group. So these are different working groups that we divided the association into, and we are pushing different kind of verticals on this. So we need a common tokenization framework. So that's the idea of this ERC standards, is that there are already token protocols on Ethereum compatible chains and on other chains as well. ERC20, it's for the fungible tokens. Then you have ERC721 for NFTs. And yeah, ERC3643, which is in fact an ERC20, but with additional features. And as long as we can agree on pushing the same standards, we can make the industry evolve. So what is exactly ERC3643? So at the beginning, it's an ERC20, but on top of that, you have 100 plus functions that have been added to it to be able to manage all the kind of aspects of managing securities on chain. So for example, you have functions like mint, burn, pause the token, freeze and freeze, recovery. Recovery is very important. You all know that on classic tokens, ERC20, you can lose your assets. You understand very well that when it's about a security, you cannot lose a security. It doesn't make sense. So as every stakeholder in the ecosystem is identified and the token issuer know who they are, they can recover the tokens if the tokens are lost. Like if you lose access to your private keys, you can always contact the token issuer and get your token back. You also have different management functions. So the owner can specify different agents on the token. They can do some operational tasks and everything. And transfer restrictions. So that's very important. So in opposition to classic ERC20, ERC3643 are permissioned tokens. So the transfer function is the same as ERC20 in terms of interfaces. So it's very easy, very convenient, because all the tools that have been built for ERC20 are natively compatible with ERC3643. The only difference is that when you try to make a transfer, it may fail, because if the transfer is not compliant, it will fail. So that's what the transfer restrictions are doing. It's checking the eligibility of the receiver of the transaction. So this receiver needs to be linked to an on-chain identity that is valid, and it has to verify also all transfer rules, like compliance rules. For example, to give you a very basic example, in Reg D in the US, you can have maximum 2,000 investors in the US, even if they are eligible, so they verify the rules of the on-chain identity. If you have already 2,000 investors in the US, another one cannot receive tokens, and that's managed by compliance rules. But you have a lot of these compliance rules. It's very modular, flexible. You can add and remove them during the life cycle of the token, so it's not fixed. And that's how we built it. So these are the different periods of time of the token, let's say. So you have the primary market first, where the investors subscribe to a token and they get the token minted by the agent of the issuer. And then on the secondary market, you have investors that can transfer tokens from peer-to-peer. And with all that I said before, with the compliance rules and everything, you can be sure that when a transfer happens on the blockchain and is completed on the blockchain, it's compliant. So the standard is meant to be compliant by design, and ensure that every transaction happening there is compliant. So the blockchain can in fact be used as a primary registry for your securities, and every transaction can be considered final. So this is the architecture of the standard. So you have different parts of it. It can seem complex, but in fact, the association provides a factory that allows you to deploy all these smart contracts and configure them all in one single transaction. So it's very convenient. But you have the security tokens. So this part is an ERC20 with the compliance rules that I was saying, the different functions. It's linked to the part which is registry, which is about the management of eligibility of investors. So it's linking the different rules that you need to be an eligible investor, and it allows you to make the link with on-chain identities and to check if an investor corresponds to the rules of eligibility that are set by the token issuer. And the compliance part, so it's a modular smart contract. Each module is defining a different rule of compliance, and you can add and remove modules as the life cycle of the token evolve, and also if the legal framework evolves, because we all know that it's not fixed in time. Right now it's evolving a lot. So you can add and remove these compliance rules, and we can create new ones if a rule is required and it's not there yet. So that's something that the association is taking care of. So the standard is open source and it's well documented. So if you want to take a look, there is a white paper which is basically explaining everything in detail. You have the website of the association on which you can connect and check everything that's going on about the association. And on the GitHub, you have all the code which is completely open source, and you can take it and do whatever you want with it. So the standard has been validated by the Ethereum community, so it's a final status standard and final status ERC. It has been audited by Hacken with 10/10 security score, so that's for the implementation of the standard itself. So the standard defined the interface. The implementation has been done by Token2049, and now we are looking to get more participation from the community to make it evolve. And the standard is also recognized by a lot of different regulators. So Token2049 is based in Luxembourg, so of course we discussed a lot with CSSF, which is the regulator of Luxembourg, but we also discussed with a lot of other regulators, and it never happened that we discussed with a regulator and they told us that there is something missing in the standard, so that's quite great. So this is an example, so Token2049 T-Rex platform, so it's a platform on top of the ERC3643. So Token2049 is a software provider. We provide software with a license to manage these tokens when they are issued, because as you may have understood, these tokens are way more complex to manage than classic ERC20 due to the compliance rules and everything. So these applications allow you to manage everything, manage the cap table of investors, manage the compliance rules, manage the full life cycle of the token. And that's it. So thank you for listening, and if you have any question, feel free to ask.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joachim, for walking us through ERC 3643. As a political scientist, I really appreciate the work that you and your team are doing, because what Joachim's team is doing, in essence, is creating clarity and consensus for an industry standard that can also then be taken to the regulators, right? And can be the basis of the regulation for an industry, right? For our industry. And as anybody in any industry will know, if the regulation doesn't match up with what you're doing, at the end of the day, it's not going to work, right? So very, very important job in a new industry to really set the standard with the consensus of everybody involved to make sure that it also can be made into a coherent and working regulation for our industry. So thank you, right? That's all I can really say. And thank you, Joachim, for walking us through all of that. We would actually have a little bit of time for 1 or 2 questions, if anybody would like to ask Joachim something about the standard. Yes?
With ERC36. Hey, I'm the founder and CEO of Hutfin.com. We are doing something similar. So the only question becomes, and we are based out of US, how are we trying to solution for shared ownership? Something like REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust, where one token could be owned by hundreds of people.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, so basically the point of ERC3643, as I was saying, is a fungible token. So what we do with ERC3643 is that you will have one token smart contract representing this asset that can be shared with a lot of people. And you would have, for 100 people, you could have like 10,000 tokens representing fractionalized assets, and each of these 100 investors could have a few of these tokens. So that's the way that you fragment it, like fractionalize.
We would have time for 1 more question, and if anybody has a burning question to ask Joachim. Yes.
Hey Joachim, thank you very much for the presentation. During the presentation you mentioned that you were working on the EVM side of the ERC3643, and you also showed the non-EVM blockchain. Is there a plan to integrate this standard to those blockchain, or is it in the working progress? Thank you.
Thank you. And here you are.
Yes, so ERC3643, as the name mentioned, is an ERC standard, so it's an Ethereum standard. But it doesn't mean that you cannot make it happen on other chains. In fact, we are working now with Movement Lab to make a Move implementation of the standard. So you can just replicate the interfaces on another language. It can be Rust, it can be any other. Mostly Rust, I believe, after Move that we would do. And yeah, it's the main idea. In fact, Partisia, which is inviting us here, is not an EVM chain, and we are discussing with them to potentially make a implementation on their chain.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again for joining us and for your presentation today, everybody. Joachim. Merci beaucoup.